What's going on, my freedom-loving patriots? If you wouldn't mind, please like, comment, hit that subscribe button. We are at 522, starting a fresh month, so I hope we can have the same love and support we've had the past few months. Today, we are doing a hilarious reaction to a Piers Morgan, who still has me blocked on X, by the way, but he had Cenk, Uygur, Clay Travis, and two other people on his podcast yesterday. I don't know their names, but this is hilarious because every time I see Cenk Uygur on Piers Morgan and he's about to speak about Trump, he almost loses his damn mind. He probably has Trump derangement syndrome worse than anyone else that I know. Like, he cannot hold his temper. He's loud. He talks over you. He screams, and he just makes up stuff as he goes on. For example, that it was a Republican that attacked Nancy Pelosi's husband. It's insanity, the words that come out of this man's mouth. So we're going to react to it together. Like, comment, subscribe. Let's get it started, y'all.
Been assassinated.
The right wing loves violence. And the minute that it touches Donald Trump, you guys go, oh my God, it turns out violence is bad.
Trump.
Piers, it's okay. He's your friend. You guys did a show together. You're going to have access to him.
Didn't the last time you interviewed Trump, wasn't it kind of a disaster that he was furious with
Thank you,
right?
Clay.
Trump is a super bright guy. You can't succeed in business like he has without a lot of talent.
Well, exactly.
Tim Walz a moron.
He's a miserable
Tim Walz
failure
an absolute
in business.
moron.
6 major
He is going to get embarrassed. Walz hasn't done a
The
single...
problem with the left is they'll make up Trump's past or say just because he had filed for bankruptcy or one of his businesses in the past failed, that means he's just a screw up and a failure. Trump has been in the spotlight forever. There's been rappers that made songs about him. All of the leftist propagandists all used to love him until he ran as a conservative. He was in all the movies. He was in all the songs. He had The Apprentice, which was the #1 show. He was a boss, and everyone loved him. It was the minute he came down that escalator and ran as a conservative that they decided overnight that he is now our #1 enemy. And still 12 years later, almost, they're still doing the same tactics day in and day out. It's nothing new. The big media, the leftist communists, they have exposed themselves. Their plan is so obvious and the population just isn't buying what they're putting out anymore. So Cenk, he's a very small minority of just very Trump deranged individuals.
Single solo interview with a national media figure since he was elevated.
Donald Trump is the dumbest man we've ever seen in public life, and these guys are pretending he's smart. He's like, well, how could he be a successful? He's not a successful businessman.
You are like a guy who got broken up with and can't get over it. This is so deranged.
She's a chameleon. Why don't you admit she's a chameleon? All of you are chanting, lock her up, lock her up. She's our political opponent.
He didn't.
You guys loved it. You loved it.
Hey, California homeowner, did you know that PG&E is now the most expensive electricity provider?
Until this weekend, border czar Kamala Harris was last seen at the US-Mexico border in 2021. She's previously explained her failure to visit by pointing out she hasn't been to Europe either. She also derided Donald Trump's border wall as a medieval vanity project. But that was the old Kamala. Kamala the chameleon is suddenly getting tough on illegal immigration, and she wants everybody to know about it. But is anybody buying it? Can a 20-minute photo op do anything to persuade the millions of Americans who blame the Biden administration for southern border chaos? Unsurprisingly, Donald Trump's not convinced in a typically under...
If they were tough on border, if they were tough on crime, they would fix the issues now before the election. It is manufactured, and they always promise all this free stuff before an election to get your vote. If Biden and Kamala Harris wanted to go and fix the border, they wouldn't need a bill passed in the House and the Senate. They can use executive action, just like Trump did, to seal that damn border. But it's all by design. It's on purpose. And Kamala and the Democrat Party think you're too stupid to know about their past policies and what they've stood on in the past in regards to the policies they run on. She's flip-flopping literally on everything. And it's funny that Piers, because I consider him a liberal, like an old school liberal, he's definitely not Trump deranged, but he always lies and says Trump's lies about all this stuff, but he never actually explains what it is that Trump lies about.
The stated fashion, he responded to the border visit by declaring Harris to be mentally impaired and demanding she be prosecuted. But joining me to discuss all this and look forward to the vice presidential debate on Tuesday is the founder and host of the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur, the commentator Claudia Conway, the founder of Clay Travis, and the director of new documentary vindicating Trump. The conservative commentator.
By the way, before they start, guys, I want to let you know I will be doing a live stream on not TikTok, X, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook tonight of the vice presidential debate. I think Vance is going to stomp Tampon Tim just because Tim Walz is just very extreme progressive. He doesn't really offer any good policies that are going to benefit or fix our lives or help us in any way. Where Vance, he actually has a military background. He actually grew up running companies as well. And he's a good talker. He's a good debater, and he's good on policy. So, I mean, what can you really ask? Vance wasn't my first choice, but the more I hear Vance speak, the more I actually do really like him.
Susan, welcome to all of you. Well, let me start with you, Clay.
Cuda de Leon. Sorry if I mispronounced it right. How are you doing today? Hope you're having a great day.
Travis, the border czar, Kamala Harris, suddenly seems to be remembering what her job was.
I think it's a sign, Piers, of how much she's in trouble that she went to Arizona.
You're so right. You're so
every
right.
Policy she's basically stood for her entire political career. Remember, this was a woman who, when she was running in 2019, Piers, didn't just say she basically wanted a wide open border. She said that any migrants that were being held in prison should get taxpayer funded gender reassignment surgery. That is, we should be paying in the United States to make sure that illegal immigrants are able to change their gender. I mean, this was absolute balderdash. This is madness. And I think this issue by itself, in conjunction with over 400,000 criminals, 13,000 convicted murderers, 16,000 rapists all entering this country and starting to wreak havoc all over the citizens of the United States.
Let's be very clear right now how terrible that is. Thousands upon thousands of killers, rapists, and criminals who we have no clue their background or where they come from. They are roaming free in our country right now with no consequences. Our government actually is giving them free resources while they are hurting, attacking, raping, and kidnapping our most vulnerable, and it is not okay.
States. I think it standing alone is going to cost her Arizona and Nevada. I think she's going to lose Georgia, North Carolina, and it all comes down to whether Trump can win one of the three states, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, or Michigan. I think he can. I think this issue is the single worst, right alongside of the economy for Kamala and why she doesn't deserve a promotion.
Yeah, I mean, Cenk, the thing I would say, if I was looking at this with no horse in the race, which I don't,
comes the Trump derangement
attempts to claim that I do, would be that by going there now, it looks like political expediency, but it also reminds everybody just how bad the southern border crisis has been under the Biden administration. It's indisputable. The numbers don't lie. Surely it was a tactical error to suddenly go down there and pretend you really care when you haven't been there in nearly 4 years.
It's 100%. Oh, sorry for the ads, guys. It's 100%. Let me get this ad out of the way first.
With Root Insurance, it's easy to save because your driving is the #1.
Before he goes on his rant, it is a political stunt to make her look good, like she's tough on borders, that she's tough on security. And it goes back to my previous point. If they were in favor of border security, they would have already did something. Trump put in place by executive action the secure border because they didn't want to pass bills, so he did it himself. And that's exactly what Biden and Kamala could do if they really wanted to fix the border crisis.
You're not biased against her at all.
Yep.
You just called her Comma Chameleon, but okay.
Well, she is.
The border issue.
That doesn't mean to sound partisan.
Right. No,
she just is.
No,
she is a chameleon.
Okay, sure.
You don't agree? Well, hang on. You don't agree with that?
No, I don't.
You don't think Kamala Harris deserves the title Karma Chameleon for repeatedly U-turning on previous positions? Seriously, Cenk? Seriously?
So hold on.
No, you hold on.
First of all,
answer me.
Piers, I'm not going to agree to your rando nickname for Kamala Harris. What the issue
Do you not
I
think
brought
she's
up
being
is that
chameleon-like?
Hold on. Can I answer the question? I brought up the issue that you're biased against her, and then you proved me right by saying she's a chameleon. Why don't you admit she's a chameleon? Meanwhile, we have a mentally disabled person running against her, but we'll get to that. So in terms of the border, look, all of this is silliness. I don't do the usual partisan stuff. So first of all, on immigration,
this dude literally just called Trump mentally unstable. This is amazing.
The Biden administration did not do a good job for at least a couple of years in between. The numbers have come back down now. But in putting her as in charge of any portion of the border was Joe Biden throwing her under the bus. They had nothing to do. She had nothing to do because he wouldn't let her. And so I don't think that the Democrats have covered themselves in glory on the issue of immigration. I think going down there for a photo op and just looking at, the border is just so meaningless. Every stupid politician does it. It gains them nothing. The media shouldn't feed into that. But finally, I think that people have to admit, look, Kamala Harris came to Donald Trump's position. I'm not thrilled about that, but that's a fact, right? And then Donald Trump said, oh, yeah, I don't want my own position, because he wanted to help himself in the election rather than protect you guys. He cares more about himself than the voters every single time. And there is no excuse you guys have for Donald Trump killing his own immigration bill.
All right, so he's talking
other than
about
his
supposedly
greed and
the
his
bill that Rick Scott, I believe it was, conservatives who are just rhinos. That's the thing about me. I'll admit that we have some bad actors on our side. The left, they just ignore it. We had some rhino spineless Republicans come up with the Democrats a fake border bill that wasn't even a border bill. It was $60 billion to Ukraine, $20 billion to Israel, Gaza. I'm not sure which one it went to. And that's it. And they would hire more border agents. But what would that do? If you don't have a secure border and you're not turning people away and you're leaving gaps up within the border to let more people in, you're just hiring people at that point just for more processing. That's it. It doesn't fix the issue, which is securing the border. And this administration keeps on lying about that, saying that Donald Trump shut down the border bill because he didn't want this administration to have a win. That's not true. The border bill allowed 5,000 illegals a day to come across our border. So again, how did that fix our issues? It didn't. It just legalized illegal immigration, in their own words, easier.
selfishness and his narcissism.
Dinesh, your response to that? And welcome to Uncensored, by the
I
way.
love Dinesh.
I think that Kamala Harris going to the border is part of a strategy in which she is relying on the media to do work for her. And here's what I mean. The ordinary American is not happy with the way the country is going. And normally this leads to throw the bums out because the people who are in power are doing a bad job. But the one thing the Democrats have is virtual unanimity in the mainstream media. And so they're counting on a narrative that basically says to the American people, don't believe your lying eyes. Don't believe your pocketbook. Don't believe the crime that you see in cities. Don't believe the hordes of people swarming across the border, the reports of criminals. Instead, accept this portrait of a new and improved Kamala Harris that we're going to give you, this smoke and mirrors, this Kamala at the border talking tough. So they're counting on this fictional portrait, this movie portrait of Kamala Harris to trump, if I can use that term, the observations and experience of the American people. They're counting on the American people.
Good point there, Cutter de Leon. Because just like crack era, I guarantee the shadow government makes tons of fentanyl trafficking. Yes. And it's crazy because the CIA and the feds and our own government are in bed and doing this. They're the ones that are letting this happen. The trafficking of kids, drugs, people throughout the country, just handing them a golden ticket and saying, welcome to America with our taxpayer cash given to them. It's ridiculous, and it should piss off every single taxpayer. The border, the number one issue, I believe, for this election is the border. And unfortunately for Kamala, she has done zero to fix it. So that's why I think we need to elect Trump again.
People being complete and total suckers.
Okay, Claudia, welcome to Uncensored to you too, two debutantes today. The American people apparently need to be complete suckers to buy into what Kamala Harris is now doing on the border.
Did you know you could be entitled to a 5- or 6-figure payout if you were in a traffic collision with?
I think there's some truth to that. I think that immigration is her worst topic, in my opinion. I
Duh.
think that the Biden-Harris administration, what they've done with immigration, has been abysmal. And I think that we can't really call her a chameleon. If we're going to call her a chameleon, we have to call Trump a chameleon and JD Vance a chameleon and everybody else a chameleon.
How? Trump's not staging these events. He's been talking about the border situation forever, where the Kamala Biden administration have repeatedly lied, saying the border was secure, while they're also lying on the numbers coming across. They are lying about everything. So how is it comparable that we call Trump that when Trump's not the president? One, we had a secure border under him. Two, and three, he was making people wait in their countries they were coming from. He was not allowing them to cross and to get the court date, which usually they just don't show up. So again, how is it comparable? I absolutely hate, because Piers should call this out, and he never does.
Yeah, but I would.
They're all flip-flopping.
Hang on, I would.
Yeah.
Cenk
Exactly.
wasn't smart enough or calm enough to ask me. You have done. So let me just, for the record, I think they're all pretty chameleon-like. Trump has U-turned on many things, right? So is JD Vance, not least calling Trump Hitler. So yeah, I think they've all got a chameleon trait. It just so happens, and that Boy George is actually a friend of mine.
There's a difference between hating Trump in the past, like JD Vance has done, and evolving your thinking and seeing that policy has made your life better. Compare that to a photo op while you were having an open border that is killing Americans and forcing drugs into our country. Huge difference. I hate when they try to make the same comparison between Trump and Kamala, when it's drastic differences.
So you only named Kamala.
Well, no, because Kamala Chameleon obviously sounds very similar to Karma Chameleon, which was the big Boy George hit with Culture Club. That's why she's called Karma Chameleon.
Yeah.
If Trump was called Kamala Trump, he'd be called Kamala Chameleon, because it would go better with the song. That's the only reason she's got the name. But they're all quite chameleon-like, in my opinion. Well, it's true.
Yet conveniently, you found no derogatory nicknames for Donald Trump or JD Vance. You just happened to find one for Kamala Harris.
I've just said to you,
it's okay, Piers. It's okay. He's your friend. You guys did a show together. You did this to him. We get it. You want Trump to win. Let's move on.
Hey, Dennis, how are you doing? Dennis, I was wondering, I was actually going to text you soon. When the debate happens between JD Vance and Tim Walz tonight, do you want to do a live reaction show with me? We can do a live podcast if you're down on YouTube. I'd love to have another person reacting with me to the craziness that's going to happen tonight.
Said none of those things, other than I'm happy to say Donald Trump's been a friend
Piers,
for 20 years.
Didn't
but
the
I've
last
also,
time you interviewed Trump,
So
wasn't
you did say those things.
Wasn't it kind of a disaster that he was furious with
Thank you,
right?
Clay.
Yep.
He actually issued 4 statements from the office of the presidency. Or he was obviously just out of there.
Because you're a fake, Piers, and that's why Piers has me blocked on Twitter. Because I always say, weren't you supposed to be friends with him? And then he will always talk bad about Trump and say, oh, he lies so much. Oh, he does this and that. But he can never give a single example of the statement he's making with proof. Where with Kamala, we can give about 100 evidence statements of what she's done and said in the past.
He issued 4 official statements lambasting me as so dead I was catching flies. So our friendship has had rocky periods, but ultimately, yeah,
you're fake.
Trump has been a friend of mine a long time. I have friends, Cenk, you may not understand the concept of this. I have friends who sometimes I disagree with them. You know, you're one of them.
I understand that better than anyone.
Let me come back
like
to
you.
But let me come back to Claudia. You've been
We
waiting
don't agree.
patiently. Claudia, finish your point.
I think that her going to the border at this time is a little performative, and I focus on the Gen Z vote. And immigration is not as important to Gen Z voters as it is to all registered voters. It ranks about 61% of voters rank it as very important.
Oh.
But with Gen Z voters, I mean, they're not really looking at this, but I'm looking at this and I'm saying, why? You know, her campaign's been pretty smart, but, you know, back to what everybody else was saying, I think this was just like, you know,
smart
a
about
little ploy for the campaign, just going to Douglas, Arizona and saying, hey, I'm at the border. You know, many Republican Congress people were upset about this.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I just don't think
I don't think it was a good move.
No, I just think it looked, as you say, performative. Clay, Trump's been giving a number of speeches over the last few days, which contain, the usual greatest.
The difference between Trump and Kamala also is that Trump goes into the lion's den. He's been on CNN, Fox News, ABC, all of them. He even went to the black journalist where Kamala was supposed to show up and instead put that woman on blast who was very disrespectful to him. He's been everywhere. And Kamala, she'll have these scripted interviews, for example, with NBA players yesterday. She thinks they're unintelligent and they won't ask her hard questions. And when they did in regards to inflation yesterday, Matt Barnes, I'll give him that credit. He did ask a good question and she did the usual. Oh, I grew up in a middle income family. I believe in small business. She has no policy plans. She can't even talk clearly at all.
But also some slightly insane moments. Let's take a look at some of the stuff that happened at the weekend.
You're wasting tons of money on deodorant. Stop it. Did you know deodorants don't actually stop sweat? Deodorant.
Joe Biden became mentally impaired. Kamala was born that way. Okay. She was born that way. And if you think about it, only a mentally disabled person could have allowed this to happen to our country. Anybody would know this.
I mean, Clay, look, I see Trump
That's true.
for what he is. He talks in this way that it makes people laugh. He's entertaining. He's brutal. He's bombastic. He loves insulting people.
No, he loves. All right. This is the way that Trump thinks. I had the border secure. You open the border on day one, which has caused so many people to die, get attacked, get stabbed, get raped, get their car jacked, get their houses jacked. So he is going to call her exactly what she is, a spineless chameleon. So what's wrong with that? Piers is the type of friend that you do not like around because he talks shit behind your back. He's like the one person in the group who you don't know why he's part of the group. That's just how I feel.
A smart move for Trump to be calling Kamala Harris mentally disabled from birth a month before an election where she may end up being president of the United States?
I think it's an effective attack. I think the word choice, as you well know, with Donald Trump is sometimes the bull in the china shop aspect of his entire personality. He is an entertainer that's at a rally, and I think it has to be taken in that context. But what I think he's getting at, which cuts through and does connect, I think, with a lot of voters is Joe Biden, clearly, despite all the people on the left trying to claim that he was the best version of himself and behind closed doors, he was sharp as a tack, which was what everybody said up until June 27th, as you well remember, not actually able to cite some sort of mental and physical cognitive decline to explain away why she's been wrong on everything. And I think this is important, too. Do you remember in 2004, in many ways, George W. Bush won that election because he said John Kerry was for the war in Iraq until he was against it, and they got him on flip-flopping. Your comma chameleon line for Kamala Harris, I mean, just think about this. She now wants to build a border wall. She doesn't want to ban.
Also, isn't it amazing they talk about Trump's rhetoric when they've been calling him Hitler, Nazi, attacking his family and his loved ones for the past 12 years and lied on his name, but dare that he calls her a snake.
Straws. She wants to allow fracking. She now doesn't believe in reparations. Basically, everything Kamala Harris has ever said in her entire political career up until 2020, she doesn't believe in anymore. And I think that's what's going on here. Look, Kamala's been wrong on every issue. I mean, I would ask anybody who's supporting her, name one thing that Kamala Harris has done really well, such that she deserves a promotion. Piers, on your show, I bet you've had production assistants that got everything wrong. They probably didn't end up the overall producer of the show. That's what Kamala Harris is arguing for.
Yeah, I mean, Cenk, here's the thing, Cenk. I know you're pragmatic. You obviously don't want Trump to win. I sort of feeling you're holding your nose with Kamala Harris. You don't want her to be the Democrat nominee, but she is. Therefore, you kind of, she'll have to win because I hate Trump so much. She's not a convincing candidate. I mean, she is a massive flip-flop, but she deserves the chameleon title. Every interview is full of word salad nonsense. Yep. With Trump, you kind of know how
much you want to bet? I'll bet $20 that he's going to pull the butt Trump card right now.
He is now. He served 4 years. We know him good, bad, and ugly. Kamala Harris does not. She wouldn't inspire me to open a crisp packet. I have to be honest. Now, am I wrong?
Yeah, so guys, you're looking at it wrong, of course, I think. So, but let me explain because it's a little bit more complicated. I think that Kamala Harris is a typical politician, and that's not a compliment. I think she's an establishment Democrat, and I think 90% of politicians are establishment Democrats or Republicans. So if you're someone who's on the left or progressive and you think she's going to deliver unicorns and rainbows, no, she's going to deliver for her donors. So
yeah, Cenk is the most cringe person of them all. Anna Pasparian, I believe her last name is. She's been having some red pill moments lately in regards to like the trans movement, men and women's restrooms. I couldn't debate Cenk in person. I'd have to hit that knockout button. Yes, 100%.
Then if you're at home, you're saying, oh my God, that means I vote for Trump, right? No. The reason I'm voting for Kamala Harris is because Donald Trump is literally mentally impaired.
Here it comes.
He's a danger to this country, to our democracy. And that is not just a talking point. He said to terminate all the rules, regulations, and articles of the Constitution when he didn't win.
Yeah, but he's not going to do that. And you know he's not going to do that. You know that's not what he meant.
But,
this is the problem, though.
So, guys,
when you go after Trump.
So this is the problem, Piers. This is the problem. Whenever we're talking about criticizing Kamala Harris, you guys let me and everybody else go for 20 minutes. And then whenever I say the first thing about Trump, everybody jumps in to cut it off. That's how this thing is so biased. So let me tell you, you want to talk about mental impairment? Come on, guys. It should have been over when he said, let's put disinfectant inside our bodies. He's a very, very dumb man.
He didn't
He thinks that clean coal is you take out coal and you scrub it clean.
That's a lie. So they're going through all the talking points that the left always lies about right now. He's such an idiot that he ran a huge business. He's a billionaire. That doesn't happen by mistake. He is obviously successful. He has Trump hotels and businesses everywhere. He was loved by the rap and actor community, I guess you could say. The minute he ran as a Republican, they turned the switch. They got all the talking points from the left, and they've been doing the same thing every day for 12 years. This face right here, and I love that I paused right here, is the face of a person with mental issues, probably. Also a face of someone with severe Trump derangement syndrome right there, ladies and gentlemen.
He thinks the F-35 stealth fighter is invisible to the naked eye like Wonder Woman. He took a dementia test and thought it was an IQ test. The other day, he said that the audience in the debate went crazy for him. There was no audience in the debate. The man has significant mental problems. I'm not going to vote for a borderline lunatic.
Okay.
So that's why this conversation is nonsense. A typical politician versus a guy who tried to terminate the Constitution.
He's a nut job.
And is a verifiable lunatic. Not a hard question at all.
All right, let me bring in Dinesh. You spent some time with Trump recently for this new project of yours. What's your assessment of Trump now compared to, say, 8 years ago when he first came on the political scene, took everyone by surprise, not least the Democrats, pulled off the most shocking presidential win in American history? What's your impression of Trump now?
Well, there are certain aspects of Trump that are exactly the same. I mean, you have to look at this guy as a kind of stand-up comedian. When he was making the lines about Kamala, you could tell he was getting the reaction that he was going for. And he's genuinely insightful and funny. He has a good sense of the one-liner, and he delivers it almost to perfection. Now, the point is, people said a lot of the same things even about Reagan. You know, the guy's crazy, he's demented. So Trump is not outside the mainstream in his political rhetoric. When Cenk says that he's a would-be dictator, he will terminate the Constitution and so on, all of this would be somewhat scarier if Trump hadn't already been in office. I mean, the guy was there for
already
4
tried
years.
to terminate the Constitution.
So they're trying to fearmonger again. This is what the Democrats do best. They fearmonger and they say he's going to do this and this. He's a dictator on day one. They always take one word he says in a 2-hour speech and take it out of context because they know they indeed are the communists. They are the Marxists. They are the pedophiles, in my opinion, too. You protect pedophiles, you are a pedophile. You vote for pedophiles, I don't know. I feel like that could get me in trouble, so I'll stop there.
How many leading Democrats, Cenk, did Trump prosecute and lock up? Let's compare that to the
0. And I wanted to read a comment. He's a soy boy for sure. Nothing he says makes sense 75% of the time. Yes, he does have soy boy energy as well. He reminds me of an Indian Mike Johnson.
Number of Republicans
he's smart,
that have been indicted. Did Trump indict the leader of the opposition party and try to put her in jail? People shouted, lock her up, lock her up. But did he actually try to lock Hillary up? No.
No, but
did you know that you could be
These stupid
entitled to a
commercials. Sorry,
5,
guys.
even 6-figure payout like this for a faultless act?
Before I come back to Cenk to respond to that, I want to play a clip from Dinesh's film here, Vindicating Trump. This is relating to Trump being comparable to Caesar. Take a look.
You're not a normal Republican. You are massive entrepreneurial success and a builder. You built the New York skyline. You're also a cultural icon. They fear that even though they know you're not Caesar, you do have that kind of dimension. You have that kind of power. You didn't do an insurrection, but guess what? Had you called for one, there would have been one. And there would be one if you called for one now. They know that kind of power.
Yeah.
They're scared of it. And so they're like, this is the one guy we need to go after by all means necessary.
Well, I don't know if I have that power. I'm not sure I want that power. I want the power just to make the country better.
I mean, Cenk, that would be my.
But that's also the difference. I agree that Trump does have that power, but we're the party of peace. The only thing the left can use against us is the insurrection that never happened, while they rioted and burned down businesses for months on end, while their Palestine movement is blocking highways, blocking people from getting to work, destroying arts, destroying history, statues. It's amazing. They are the party of craziness. They are the party of corruption. They always say we're the violent ones. Well, if I recall, Steve Scalise almost got shot. What's his name? Rand Paul had his ribs broken with his wife next to him. Should I continue? When do you see violence from the right? The only thing they ever say is January 6th. Well, as we now know, there was federal agents in that crowd. As we know, they brushed them on in. And if you see the people who are in those videos, a lot of them were just older, just taking pictures, walking through. But this is the left's last gotcha moment or last grab to try to persuade people to vote for them because they think we're stupid. They think that Republicans or just Americans in general are too stupid to do simple research and watch the videos. January 6th was not an insurrection.
Point, which is if Trump was going to do all the things you claim he's going to do, he'd have done them.
Yeah, but he did. It's you guys pervert reality in a way that is amazing. You pretend that he.
Can you stop saying you guys? Dinesh has just said that.
You just did it, Piers. How do I not include you when you just did it?
I literally said.
Can I answer the question?
You said that Trump wants to undo every part of the Constitution. I'm telling you that is completely insane for you to say that. Utterly nonsense.
You're insane.
He's never going to do it. He's not going to do it. You know it. I know it.
Okay, guys, let me just address the audience. Okay, these guys are trying to brainwash you into forgetting the things that Donald Trump actually did. He actually did January 6th. They actually did rush the Capitol. They did get inside the Capitol. People did die. He did say, let's terminate the Constitution when he didn't win. He did have a 3-hour meeting about installing martial law and rolling out the tanks. Everyone in his administration said they would resign immediately if he did that, which General Michael Flynn suggested. He actually, when his chief of staff said, your fans are looking to murder your vice president, he said he deserves it. So you guys are pretending.
Yeah, that's also a lie. This is the problem with people with Trump derangement syndrome. They'll just start, the minute you bring up Trump, they'll go on these deranged rants. Nancy Pelosi's husband was attacked by a gay dude. And from the looks of it, if the video was clear, actually it was clear, he was in his boxers. So I'm assuming it was his gay lover. But if I recall, it was an immigrant, right, who wasn't even supposed to be in the country in the first place. And I believe it was this administration that let that immigrant in that did end up attacking Paul Pelosi. So this is Cenk's go-to. The last 3 videos, he will say that it was Republican, it was a Trump supporter. They think you're too stupid to go on Twitter and search Nancy Pelosi's attacker to see that he obviously wasn't a conservative. He also had BLM logos, pride flags. That is not a Republican type of person at all. That's one of these leftist Looney Tune nut jobs.
didn't do these monstrous things, which he already did.
Actually,
and
Cenk,
Piers, if you ask me why I'll never vote for Trump, because he hates America, and he already proved it. When he lost, he said, my government, I'm going to smash it to pieces if I can't have it, because he's a spoiled little baby. You're pretending like it didn't happen when it already happened.
Had you read or heard anything I wrote or said about January the 6th, you'd know exactly how I feel about it. But
Then why did you just pretend that it didn't happen?
No, I didn't.
You're like, well, he didn't do it. He did do it.
Well, the arguable point, which needs to be argued in the court of law, is whether he inspired an insurrection. Right? He vehemently denies that. You say he did, and it is an arguable point.
I know. There
was clearly a riot at the Capitol.
Don't see that.
There was a
him not calling them off.
But again, he gets so mad about January 6th when you never hear the left calling out their own side for the Palestine protests. How about these pride parades where they're naked people outside pissing on each other in these fetish pools in San Francisco with kids around? You want little kids around, grown adults peeing on each other in the middle of public, butt naked? That's the kind of stuff the left does that they ignore. But they have the January 6th. That's all they ever talk about. Who else is sick of hearing this daily? That's all they have. January 6th, January 6th. Well, you guys burn down black-owned businesses, white-owned businesses, attack the cops. This won't happen for months on end. You have the Palestine protesters as well doing this now to cops, taking over colleges. But God forbid, January 6th was just the worst day in our country's history.
There was a shameful riot at the Capitol that was violent and should never have happened. And I've said that repeatedly. On that, I totally agree with you. Clay Travis.
But now you're back to the insurrectionists and supporting them.
Well, I'm going to come to Claudia in a moment.
And again and again.
Claudia, I'll come to you in a moment. Clay, part of the problem with talking to people like Cenk, I love having him. A lot of passion, a lot of verve, and so on. But once he gets talking about Trump, he literally goes mad every single time. He sounds like he sounds like the very lunatic he's talking about.
America, Trump already tried.
Sorry, your name isn't.
The Biden administration finally.
Sorry, guys. Come on.
The Biden administration finally agreed to ban Peter Daszak and EcoHealth Alliance.
Clay
fake
Cenk.
electors.
Your name isn't Clay.
Okay, yeah, look, electors.
He sounds
I
like
Clay.
Pretending he's normal.
Jilted girlfriend who's been cast aside. Look, let me say two things that are important here.
From
one, pre-COVID.
I don't like any of them.
Let's go to early February. I appreciate that, actually, because there are a lot of awful, dumb politicians. We can agree on that. And in fact, there's way too many all over the world, especially in America. But let me start with this. February 2020. Before, in my opinion, COVID leaked from a Chinese lab, which, by the way, you weren't even allowed to say because the Biden administration tried to censor everybody on social media. And now suddenly everybody's aware that that's the most likely outcome.
Although Clay, hang on one sec. On that one point, the biggest study was released quite recently, which did seem to suggest that the most likely cause actually was from the
Oh my God. Did he really just say that?
That was the biggest independent study.
Completely disagree.
This right here, this is what I said. And this is why Piers Morgan has me blocked on the platform. I called him out for this because he is one of those rhino Republicans because he'll say he's in the middle, but I think he's a Republican rhino and one of those terrible Democrats. He's both just terrible person. He just lies. And I guaranteed his bosses said, you better say this, even though we all know that's a lie, what he said.
I completely disagree with that theory, but let's put that aside for a minute. February of 2020, the United States had 1.4-ish% inflation. We had 2.5% mortgages. Black, white, Asian, and Hispanic real wages were up. It is the case that the American economy had never been stronger since we whipped Piers's boys back in the good old Revolutionary War and became an independent country. Never had more people been living in a better manner than in February of 2020. Second part. Okay, so a lot of people are looking at this and saying this is an economics election. Trump had the greatest American economy of all time.
It's true.
Everybody was doing better. I think that's why so many people are yearning for that era in many ways. Second part of this, I agree with both of you. January 6th, when people riot, whether they're Republicans, Democrats, or independents, there should be consequences and they should be prosecuted. Here's the problem. For 6 months, BLM effectively took over much of American cities, and virtually nothing happened to them.
Nothing happened to them, as well as they got let out of jails the next day, and the left encouraged it. They actually said, get into the face of Trump supporters when you see them and let them know that they're not welcome here. They've talked about taking out Trump on numerous occasions, and the left still on a daily basis will say it's Trump's rhetoric that these shooters came and shot him. Like he's like almost talking to his own voters to killing him. It just doesn't make sense. There's a clear hypocrisy. They only call it out when it's one way, and when it's on their side, when they're doing the craziness, they're crickets.
Harris, the tweet is still up, raised money for the people who were burning down Minneapolis to bail them out. She argued we needed to defund the police. Many people out there who are reasonable, that are not MAGA diehards, that are not Donald Trump absolute adherents, look at the way that our government responded to January 6th when Trump said, I want you to peacefully and patriotically go to the Capitol, which always gets left out. They look at the way the January 6th rioters have been treated, and they say, wait a minute, what about all the people who took over Seattle, Portland, Minneapolis, Chicago?
He's shaking his head, but that did happen, and none of them got charged and are still free till this day, while they attack police, while they burn down businesses, while they attack people just based off their skin color. All free. And some grandmas who might have been, let's say, walking around saying a prayer at the Capitol are getting years behind bars. Clear hypocrisy.
Chicago, New York City, Atlanta, all over the United States, cities burned, and almost no one took any consequences for it at all. What we have to get back to, in my opinion, in the United States, and what I believe the Biden administration has done really poorly, is they have weaponized the Department of Justice against anyone with a different political persuasion. Piers, you mentioned it. When Trump could have gone after Hillary Clinton, he said, I won the election, I'm not going to do it. When Biden got into office, he used Merrick Garland as his attack dog, and they tried to not only bankrupt Trump, they tried to put him in jail for the rest of his life. And in comparing him to Hitler, they allowed everybody free rein to believe that they would be a hero if they killed him. And oh, by the way, they don't even believe that, because every time somebody shoots at Donald Trump or tries to kill him, Kamala gets on the phone and Biden gets on the phone and they say, hey, are you okay? We deploy.
Are you ready for a career change and eager to pursue a rewarding path as a trained electrician?
For this, if you really thought Trump was Hitler, you should just say it in public. You know what? I'm sad that he missed, which 30% of Democrats actually are, even though they won't say it publicly. They don't just dislike this guy. They want him murdered in cold blood.
I want to read a comment. Ever since George Floyd, the city of Seattle has been like Grand Theft Auto. Let me tell you, my friend, California is the same in some ways. The homeless crisis, the illegal crisis, it has taken over. We have stores closing down everywhere. We have crime that's skyrocketing. I actually saw people last week dumped on the side of the road, and it looked like they were just dropped off, because it was like 30 middle-aged men, all different nationalities, didn't even look like they spoke English, just walking by a liquor store and all just sitting out there. We are being invaded. It's the great replacement theory right in front of our eyes, which the Democrats will say we're racist for even bringing that up. Prove me wrong, though.
Assassinated because they are crazy. Trump's ever said.
Claudia, you're no.
Nobody's ever said that. Clay made that up. He totally made it up. Nobody's ever actually said that.
Let me come to Claudia.
30%, according to a poll of Democrats, 30% of Democrats said they wished that Donald Trump had been assassinated.
41% of Republicans said it's time for political violence.
Oh my God.
Republicans openly
he just makes up polls as he goes along.
People that they disagree with. They've been egging on violence. Donald Trump laughed about how Nancy Pelosi's husband.
You already talked about that.
Hammer. So the right wing loves violence, and the minute.
But he just named situations where people got attacked, but it wasn't Republicans that were attacking the people. So he literally just said Trump said this, and then this person attacked Nancy Pelosi's husband. So because of those two situations, which didn't involve any Republicans, because of those two situations, Republicans love violence. This is what you call a deranged person who should never be allowed on TV. It is amazing that a face like that, the words that he spews on a daily basis, that he is a single subscriber.
That it touches Donald Trump. You guys
How
go,
many
oh my God, it
people
turns out violence
has
is
tried
bad.
to kill Trump twice in the last 2 months?
Let me ask Cenk. I thought Clay raised a very good point there about the utter hypocrisy between the Democrat view of January 6th and the Democrat view of the BLM riots. Either you oppose rioting full stop or you don't. And the way that the rioters for BLM throughout that period were treated compared to the January 6th rioters was clearly demonstrably different, wasn't it? So why? My question is why?
No,
why were they
it
treated
wasn't.
differently?
What do you mean, no, it wasn't?
Okay, no, let me explain a couple of things. So first of all, yeah, I agree that we need to be absolutely consistent. So sometimes people will lump in two different groups of people on January 6th. There's the people who went and the much larger crowd that went and spoke, watched Donald Trump speak on January 6th. Most of those people did not go to riot at the Capitol. Then there's the people who rioted.
What does that
So
have to
whenever
do
it reaches
with
the people
anything?
who just listened to the speech, I go, whoa, 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 whoa. No, they just showed up to listen to his speech. They didn't do anything wrong. But when you go and you smash into the Capitol looking to murder Mike Pence and Nancy Pelosi, obviously you've done something massively wrong. Now, when it comes to the BLM situation, the original protests were like the original people listening to Donald Trump. They came out because they were deeply concerned about the injustice against African Americans in this country.
No, it was a freaking fake news. It was the big media who portrayed that this dude was murdered and that cops are just killing black men in the streets and that there's white supremacy, which I'm sure there is a little amount still of racism. I don't deny that, but this kind of shit pisses me off when people do this, and they always do this. He's defending the BLM outrage, pretty much saying that it was okay to see that happening because George Floyd died. And there's new news coming out in regards to George Floyd that he died by, drum roll please, an overdose, as we all fucking knew he would. I'm sorry for my language. I'm just so sick of freaks like this that are on national television with a huge platform. This kind of rhetoric right here is the reason why we have these very liberal, deranged, Trump deranged people trying to attack and kill not just Trump, but Republicans. This shouldn't be tolerated, and people like this should not be platformed on a big media app. Republicans loving violence is such a weird concept for me. I agree. To wrap my head around this, it's a complete deranged stance to take. Cenk brings this up every time. Yes, he literally uses the same exact stories, which are lies, every time he's on Piers Morgan's show, while he ignores BLM rioting and burning down the whole entire country for weeks on end, or the Palestine protests, which did the exact same things. Or how about Antifa, which Antifa is ran by the feds.
And they were right. Then at some point, a smaller group of people committed violence. Police went to go arrest those people, and they should. Of course they should. The one problem that I thought persisted after that initial outburst was some parts of like Portland and Seattle were taken over, and the police let them do that for some period of time, and that was nuts. And so that's when I started saying, guys, this is not progressive. This is not the right way to go.
You defended it the whole time.
We're not for lawlessness. And then, of course, Trump did it in more spectacular fashion.
Let me bring Claudia in. You've been waiting very patiently.
I'm sorry, I keep pausing it. January 6th was one moment, one day. BLM, it was daily for months on end.
You've got a unique kind of perspective here from your own family, where your mom obviously has been out there very vocally extolling the benefit and virtues of Trump. And then your dad obviously hates Trump with a passion. You're in the middle of this. You've grown up around this. What's your kind of overview?
Workplace retaliation happens when an employer
soon, guys, I'm going to get a better, bigger, or the higher account where we don't have any ads. I apologize.
Fires, demotes, refuses to promote, or
I'm in the middle of it literally and figuratively. I don't agree with anything my mother says about Trump. I think Trump gets away with a lot.
Like?
I don't agree with a lot that's being said here, though. I think that there are nuances to rioting, especially like nuances with the BLM.
Like what?
They were not handled well, but we had people, rush into the Capitol, and that's
and
the
do
Capitol.
What?
We have Donald Trump
hang on, but Claudia, what's the difference between rioting one way and rioting another? It's still rioting.
Yep.
Rioting is using violence to get your way.
Correct. No. Absolutely. I 100% agree. And I think violence is never the answer. And I think when we have these nuances like, oh, people can argue, oh, well, they're they were protesting Black Lives Matter and they were protesting the election. Violence is never the answer. I don't care really what
But the difference is it happened one time on the right and it happens almost every day across the world on the left.
Talking about. Violence is literally never the answer. Back to my perspective, my father hates Trump with a passion.
Your father is George Conway, who's a lawyer. Your mother, Kellyanne, obviously, who's
That's Kellyanne Conway's daughter. Oh, I cannot stand this woman. I've seen her on X. She is a disgusting human being. From what I've seen, she's very Trump deranged. I am a fan of Kellyanne Conway, a huge Trump supporter. She has common sense. She's America first.
Political activist and very well known. So just for viewers who don't know, so just continue.
Yeah, and the way I see it is, you know, I will be voting for Kamala Harris, but I don't like a lot of the things that she says. But the reason I'm voting for Kamala Harris is for the sake of the safety of our democracy and for women's rights. I mean,
those are the talking points I always hear. The sake of our democracy, which just means Democrat power only, and women's rights, which just means killing babies. That is amazing to me that a woman will vote off killing babies and the sake of our democracy, whatever the fuck that means. Sorry for my language. Planned Parenthood was opened up by a racist white liberal Democrat to depopulate minority babies. Her name was Margaret Sanger, racist white Democrat who hated black people. So what do you guys have to say about that? You're for black lives, and why are you for killing mass black lives, huh? That they can never answer. This woman is a joke.
Trump gets away with everything. He called Kamala a mentally disabled person.
She is.
He said she wasn't black. He says, look at what happened in Springfield, Ohio, you know, with the schools on lockdowns and the threats. And it's ridiculous. And he's the only person who can get away with all of this. Do I think that Kamala going to the border was a political stunt? Absolutely. But when I weigh the two, to me, it's not comparable. You know, the rhetoric is not comparable. The rhetoric, the precedent of a president's rhetoric is so important. And the rhetoric we have in this country,
but Claudia, here's what I would say.
Right now, is ridiculous.
You know, you say that, but Kamala Harris.
Why is this woman even on this show? She is not qualified. Why the hell does anyone care what this retard has to say? Sorry for my language, but she's retarded.
The enemy of democracy. Biden said he had to be stopped, and then two people in the last 2.5 months have taken that seriously, and they've tried to stop him by assassinating him. And in the second case, we know from a note that the second shooter made, or was planning to shoot him, that he was using exact phraseology from Kamala Harris, literally repeating it in his note. So you say the rhetoric is only bad if it's from Trump, or much worse, but it's the rhetoric from...
No, not at all.
But the Democrat rhetoric about Trump has clearly whipped at least two people with unhinged brains into trying to kill him.
Yep.
Ridiculous.
Well,
See, he said that's ridiculous. So why are you saying that's ridiculous, Cenk? It did happen. We only see political violence from the left on a daily basis. They only have January 6th. That is it. This is your typical Democrats. This is the mind in a Democrat voter. Killing babies and threat to our democracy in January 6th. That's it. That is the Democrats' platform. If you vote off those three things, you are a retard, and I don't take you as a serious person. Sorry.
In my opinion, is disgusting. I completely condemn the assassination attempts on former President Donald Trump. But when I talk about rhetoric, I'm talking about both sides. I'm not just talking about, Donald Trump and the things he says. I'm talking about both sides. This back and forth, this nasty, game that they're playing with American voters, I think is abhorrent.
It's just a day.
I can criticize both sides, but when we look at the rhetoric of Donald Trump compared to the rhetoric of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, it's not comparable. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, maybe they shouldn't say he's a threat to democracy, which he tried to overturn the 2020 election. So there is some nuance there. But we have Donald Trump saying heinous things constantly.
Like
so
what?
Yes, we can criticize both sides, but it's not comparable.
Yeah, Dinesh, I want to bring you in on that.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in because I think that when you are trying to look at someone's character, it doesn't just, or actually not even primarily, come down to, quote, rhetoric. You have to look at someone's character by their actions, both in the public sphere and personal. Now look at Trump. here he is, and Clay mentioned this roaring economy that would have almost inevitably led Trump to re-election. But then you have his advisors come to him and say to him, the men in the white coats, there's a pandemic. You need to at least temporarily shut down the economy. And Trump has got to have known, and he did know, that if I shut down the economy, I'm actually shutting down my own economy. I'm jeopardizing my own chances of re-election, and yet he did it. So is that consistent with the idea that you've got this selfish guy who only cares about his own political prospects, doesn't care about the country? I would say no.
Actually, a very good point.
You talked about the assassination
Actually, a very good point.
See, but Cenk and this woman who shouldn't even be on the show, she's so dumb. They are so Trump deranged that's a really valid point. If he's such a dictator and he knew we had this record economy and he didn't care about people, why would he remove that, possibly knowing that something bad can happen to the economy, but it's to protect the people instead? He made a choice because it shows that he's not a selfish person, unlike the other administration that's in power who fired and got people's careers taken away for not getting the vax.
The assassination.
I mean, Cenk, you can shake your head, but that's a very good point. Anyway, but back to Dinesh.
No.
Well, Trump, look at the way in which Trump has responded to both assassination attempts. I mean, this level of bravery, I think, is unmatched by anyone, certainly in the political arena, but maybe even alive today. Who is a guy who, when he's being dragged down by the Secret Service, pulls himself up, not knowing if there are more shooters, more shots, and shouts, fight, fight, fight? Who is a guy who, upon a second assassination attempt, where there is a man evidently a few holes down who has been trying to kill you, and you are a little annoyed that you've been interrupted in your golf game because you were just about to make an amazing putt? I mean, I don't know anyone alive who would react to these kinds of terrifying situations in this way. It's clearly a window into his character.
I agree. That was such a great point. And I think that after that, he put his hand up and he had the American flag behind him. Everyone was in panic. That was such a historic moment right there that I think woke up a lot of the people, even on the left. And that's what you would call an alpha. That is the type of person you want running this country. We have cackling Kamala, who laughs about everything. At the debate, they were talking about how the immigrants are taking lives and jobs away from Americans. The illegals are, and she was laughing the whole time. She thinks it's funny because she's doing it on purpose. She thinks we're too stupid to see that we're literally being replaced right in front of us by these illegals. And she laughs. So, in regards to leadership and who has it and who doesn't, I would take Trump all day, because the way he handled himself in that situation, he could have ran off and not even turned around. And instead, he put his fist up saying, fight, to the people of America. And I don't know. That's my opinion. I think it was a very strong alpha moment from Trump. And that just made me want to vote for him even more.
Completely agree. Whether you love him or hate him, you cannot dispute that Trump has shown huge personal courage when he's literally come under fire. Cenk, I want to play you a different clip. This is from John Kerry, obviously former Democrat grandee. He took part in the World Economic Forum panel on green energy. And near the end of the panel, asked what could be done to push back against disinformation surrounding climate change online. And he said this.
There's a lot of discussion now about how you curb those entities in order to guarantee that you're going to have, some accountability on facts, et cetera. But look, if people go to only one source and the source they go to is sick and, has an agenda and they're putting out disinformation, our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, hammer it out of existence.
With Root Insurance, it's easy
Sorry,
to save
guys.
because your driving is the #1 factor in your rate.
I thought that was an extraordinary thing to say out loud, Cenk. I mean, you got a guy who was nearly president of the United States basically saying the First Amendment is a real problem.
No. So first of all, look, the establishment has this certain agenda, and they put out a massive amount of propaganda.
I don't care what they have to say about John Kerry. I apologize. I just skipped that part of the segment because I can't stand John Kerry, nor I care what he has to say.
And he relinquished it.
Okay, just to pivot quickly because we're running out of time. But Clay, you start with this, which is the VP debate on Tuesday. Obviously, Waltz against Vance. Are you concerned that JD Vance, it might be a rough night for him?
Hell no.
For JD, no. I think Tim Walz, in all honesty, Piers, is the dumbest person who has ever been on American presidential ticket in my life.
I agree.
I think the challenge that JD Vance is going to have, JD, whatever you think about him, is a Trump is a super bright guy. You can't succeed in business like he has without a lot of talent.
Well, he didn't.
Tim Walz is a moron.
He's a miserable
Tim Walz
failure
an
in
absolute
business.
moron.
6 major
He is going to get embarrassed, I think. And the thing that JD Vance is going to be, pay attention to this, Piers. The thing that JD Vance is going to have to be careful of is that he doesn't pummel Tim Walz so much that people start feeling bad for him. Walz hasn't done a single solo interview with a national media figure since he was elevated. This is a guy whose wife bragged about leaving the windows open so they could smell the burning rubber of Minneapolis. This is a guy who lied about his military service.
Also, his daughter worked with the BLM rioters and gave them coordinates on where the cops were going to be and at what time. So the daughter worked with them. The wife's a nut job if you've ever seen her talk. And he's just like, if you looked up soy boy and you wanted the ultimate soy boy picture, Tim Walz would be that person in that picture. The way he walks, the way he just presents himself. I think he's gay. I think he's gay behind scenes. As we know, a lot of these politicians are secretly gay and like it up the butt. And I think Tim Walz is definitely one of those people.
Who is utterly unqualified to be a heartbeat away from the presidency. Of everybody on tickets, I don't think Kamala's qualified. I think Tim Walz, her worst decision. She should have taken Josh Shapiro. I think he's going to get embarrassed on Tuesday night.
Cenk, the dumbest we've ever seen. Apparently,
yeah.
Tim Walz.
Yeah. So look, guys.
Here, he's going to go back to Trump. Watch.
You guys live in an amazing imaginary world. They're like, if Trump wanted to be dictator,
there's Trump.
he would probably, if he lost an election, have somebody or a lot of people rush the Capitol and then not stop.
He's literally just bringing up January 6th over and over and over. This is severe Trump derangement syndrome right here.
Them, even as they're trying to murder his vice president, and he would try to terminate the Constitution. He did do that. He did all of that.
Oh my God.
And you guys don't acknowledge it. First Amendment. Kamala Harris has never said anything against the First Amendment. Donald Trump threatens to imprison anyone who criticizes him. You guys live in a delusional, imaginary world. So in your world,
what person has Donald Trump ever prosecuted as a Democrat? Shouldn't you be able to point to at least one?
No,
you
by
can't.
the way, you know who's prosecuting Democrats? Joe Biden. I got no love for Joe Biden, but he went after Senator Menendez.
You didn't answer the question.
At least
because Trump did go after.
I'm not talking about Joe Biden. I'm saying if you're going to say Trump is going to try to put his political adversaries in prison, name one.
Hold on. Clay, let me answer the question. Clay, let me answer
You can't, because there was
none.
none.
Why the federal government, the FBI, Justice Department goes after someone? When they have evidence. Okay, so Trump says, I want Jeff Bezos arrested because some Washington Post wrote something bad about me. And then he goes, hold on, let me answer the question.
You're not
answering
answering
the Department of Justice. And they go, yeah, but what evidence do you have against him? He was mean to me. And they're like, no, we're not going to prosecute him because he was mean to you.
This is what you call a freaking clown. All right, I'm sorry. I am officially saying it now. If you watch the Young Turks or even desire to hear this guy, unless you're just there to laugh, I'm just there to laugh at him and make fun of him. If you actually listen to the Young Turks, you have some serious brain issues. Cenk got picked in his social studies class. Yeah, he was definitely picked on. He's that loudmouth kid who thinks he's the shit who really got his ass beat. This is one of these. He was the one that called out Joe Rogan in the past and said he could beat him up.
Grow up, you little child. So which leads us back to the debate. So we're talking about Tim Walz being unintelligent. Are you crazy? The guy passed
you're acknowledging, hold on, that he never has prosecuted any political adversary.
Hold on. Okay, he's the one who's came up with the "lock her up" chant. You guys again pretend it didn't happen when all of you were chanting "lock her up, lock her up." She's our political opponent. You guys loved it. You loved it.
Hold on, Cenk. Let's
get real.
But here's the thing.
And besides
First
which,
of all,
Donald Trump is a criminal.
hold
So,
on,
Clay,
the
what do you want us
people-
to do? You pretend to be in favor of freedom, and you pretend to be in
God.
favor of equality in the Constitution.
This is
Donald Trump is a
crazy.
lifelong criminal. He's broken every law that we can imagine. And
Like?
you go, oh, let him go. Let him go. He's our leader.
What? I
He's
don't
our
even know what
beloved
you're
leader.
talking
He should be
about.
He should be
Like,
above the law.
You are like a guy who got broken up with and can't get over it.
Yep.
This is so deranged. Like
I
Trump
don't
was
like
never
Trump. Why
charged
do you
with a
keep going to
crime
an analogy
until
that
he
never makes
decided to
any
run as a
sense?
Republican after 75 years of being a public figure.
All right, let me bring it. Let me bring it.
Trump
hang
because
on.
I've always
He's
known he's a
so in love
pea-brained
with
little
Trump.
idiot. Donald Trump is the dumbest man we've ever seen in public life, and these guys
Wow.
are pretending he's smart. He's like, well, how could he be a successful? He's not a successful businessman. 6 major bankruptcies. The moron built 3 casinos
He
in the
had
same
a
city.
successful
They all went
television
bankrupt.
show. He's built tons
He's the
of
only.
buildings.
Hold on.
What has
Yeah, he had
Kamala
a
Harris
television
done?
show
What
where
has
he
Joe
yapped
Biden
like
done?
he always
They
does.
never made a
And
living
where the
outside of the
producers fed him
government.
lines.
Yeah, Cenk is just he's too far gone. That's what you just those are the liberals that are just done and gone. There's just no help, unfortunately. You might need to check him into a mental institution after this video. He needs to be checked to make sure he's good. I think he just shit himself or pooped his little panties, and that's why he's throwing a little tantrum. Amazing. And the difference is Trump has ran businesses. He's been on movies. He's been in songs. He was on all these talk shows that loved him until he ran as a Republican. Hunter Biden, on the other hand, and the Bidens, they've sold out for Chinese bribes. They've been bribed by, what are all these little shell companies that they owned that are bought through China, that are bought through Russia, Ukraine? They are bought and sold for this family. And also they're pedophiles. If you check the Hunter Biden laptop, it exposes it all. So literally everything Cenk is saying about Trump, he ignores for his own side. He was going to vote for Biden, who is literally the same exact thing he's accusing Trump of being right now. Trump's a billionaire. He's a businessman. Biden and Hunter Biden are pedophiles and have sold foreign influence for bribes. But he will never hear Cenk talk about that. Looks like he got slapped across his forehead by Hunter Biden. That's hella funny.
I can tell you he's got a very successful television show.
Failed the bar exam.
I can tell you his television show is very successful, and he showed extremely high levels of intelligence on that show.
Yeah, it was
he
number
may be
one.
the winner of Celebrity
Piers,
Apprentice. Let me bring in Dinesh.
That's not a business.
Let me bring in Dinesh.
He's a carnival barker.
Actually, it made tons.
Look, guys,
Actually, hang on. The Apprentice, which he had a stake in, made tons of money. So that's not true. Dinesh.
He didn't run the business, did he, Piers?
He
didn't run the business, did he?
He did have a stake in the business of the brand of Apprentice. Yeah,
He
did.
had-
It's amazing. It's amazing. This is what he's focusing on right now.
You said he had a stake in the business because he had equity in it as part of his deal as an actor. They hired him to be an
Wow.
actor acting as a businessman. when
Okay,
they
who
knew, and they
cares?
say
All right,
now,
shut up already.
Yeah, we knew he was a failed loser businessman. But he
He's
was
the
so
most
loud. and,
Trump must be
you know,
the most
that we thought he'd
successful
make a good
failed
actor.
loser.
Kamala ever done?
It's incredible that this pea-brained loser managed to become president against the most qualified candidate in American history, Hillary Clinton.
I can tell you
but there
why.
you go, Cenk. Let me bring in Dinesh.
Because the American people hate this
Shut
establishment. That's
up,
why.
dude.
Dinesh, on
God.
the VP debate, does it matter what happens on Tuesday night? Does it have any real consequence?
Were you a driver for
sorry,
Amazon
guys.
Flex? You may be entitled to thousands of dollars.
I think it does, in part because, well, certainly in the Trump case, Trump is well into his 70s. I do think that people are thinking a little bit beyond Trump. I think that the question is whether J.D. Vance will sort of inherit the Trumpian mantle, so to speak. I think.
Yeah, I also wish Piers go unleash like Tucker. He goes, yeah, much because CNN owns him. Yeah, 100%, 100%.
The debate's going to be a contrast in styles. And that is to say that Tim Walz is clearly a kind of over-the-top a populist from the left. He gesticulates wildly. He's the kind of guy who tries to make, expressions of being an ordinary guy who fixes his own car. And now J.D. Vance is a little more cerebral. And this is in a way a contest for whose rhetoric is actually going to speak more to the white working class. And that appears to be a key swing constituency in the election. So it's two populists, one from the right and one from the left, with two different styles appealing to the same group of people.
I totally agree with that. Claudia, final word to you. The VP debate, do you think people of your generation, do they pay much attention to the VP debates, do you think?
Absolutely, and so much more than other years and other elections. You know, historically, we haven't seen that a vice presidential pick has much impact on the election. But this year, I mean, it's different. Everybody's eyes are on Tim Walz and what he's saying and what he's doing with his cars, and everybody's eyes are on JD Vance and what he's saying about this person and that person one day. And tomorrow, you know, I do agree. I think that Josh Shapiro would have been a much better pick, and I think he would have killed JD Vance in the debate, but that's not the situation we're in right now. So I'm a little concerned for both of them, quite frankly, but excited to see what's going to happen.
All I would say is that before the presidential debate recently, I was utterly convinced that Donald Trump would flatline Kamala Harris in that debate, and I was completely wrong. So it's been a very surprising race.
Me too.
And I've given up making predictions. I'm going to watch it with great interest.
All right, guys, that's into that. I will be doing a live podcast in a little bit of the debate. I won't be talking as much as I did today. I apologize for the talking. Hope you guys watch that. It will be in a little bit. Love you guys. Thanks for checking out the show. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.